Good morning. Once again, welcome to my YouTube channel. We're focusing on microeconomics at the moment. So, the word equilibrium is not an economic term. It's a borrowed term. Equilibrium, it's a borrowed term. So, we're going to discuss all of that. What you expect to learn, at least understand the meaning of equilibrium by the end of this whole study session. You should also understand the concept of static and dynamic equilibrium. Learn the meaning of partial equilibrium analysis. You should be able to state the assumptions that comes with it and the merit as well as limitations. Then you should also be able to explain the meaning of general equilibrium analysis. Also be able to state the assumptions that come with it vis-a-vis uses and limitations of general equilibrium. This is what we have captured here in this study session for you. So, equilibrium is a borrowed word from another discipline, from physics, and it also originated from Latin. Now, in physics, equilibrium is taken to mean a state of equal balance. A state of what? Equal balance, in which opposing forces or tendencies neutralizes each other. Which opposing forces or tendencies neutralizes each other. Going forward, other different scholars, of course, like every other concept, have tried to define equilibrium, especially in economics. And this is what one scholar have to say, that equilibrium is a position from which there is no tendency to move from. That is according to Professor Stigler, that equilibrium is a position that once you attain, you no longer want to, move from that position. Now, when you juxtapose these two definitions, like the definition coming from physics and the definition of Professor Stigler, and even other definition, you will come to realize that equilibrium implies a position of rest. A position of rest that is characterized by absence of change or changes. It is a state where there is complete harmony or agreement of the economic plans of the various market participants in such a way that no one want to change their plan or decision. When we say market participant, think of yourself as an individual. Think of the firm, the industries, producing the various things that you buy. Think of even the government. So when we say market participant, these are the participants we are talking about. You, the firm, the industry, the government. Because all these participants are constantly trying to achieve certain economic aims. So when you look at the two, you discover that anytime there are two forces opposing each other, the best position they will want to achieve that will give stability is equilibrium position. Now, these forces, we are not saying they're a kind of enemies or vindictive forces or something. They are just forces that are in opposite or in opposition to one another. For instance, demand and supply forces. These forces, it's not that they are enemy, but it's just that one force, on the other hand, is being controlled by the supplier or the producer or the firm, while the other force is being controlled by the individual, the consumer. Now, the decision of the consumer is enforced by the price and some other factors of the commodity, price of the commodity and some other factors. But the decision of the producer is also enforced by price of factors of production alongside other factors. The objectives of these two forces, or these two market participants, differs. The individual want to maximize satisfaction from his expenditure. The firm want to maximize profit. Now, these are opposing objectives, because if the satisfaction of the consumer were to be attained to 100%, then the objective of the firm or the producer must have been lost to 100%. What am I saying? If a consumer were to benefit completely the way a consumer wants, the consumer will probably want to spend 0 naira to get 100% satisfaction. And if the producer were to agree to that or to subscribe to that, then the producer will have to gain nothing from its production or its production activity before such an objective can be achieved. So the objectives are somehow opposing each other. The firm looks at what the consumer will do before they act, and the consumer looks at what the firm will do before they act. So everyone at the end of the day will want to attain a position where, okay, the consumer will say, okay, this is fair to me. This is based on this expenditure, based on this consumption, this satisfaction I got, I think it's fair to me. The firm too will be like, okay, that's it, it's fair to me. You understand? So it is a state of rest. You just wake up every morning as a firm or as a consumer, you know that, okay, you are not going to meet any market shock, because market shocks make consumers to also act. Imagine when you are not certain whether certain product will be available tomorrow or next tomorrow. You are not certain. Your behavior will be different. Before you know, you start hoarding, start buying in more than you need and things like that. So these are the things. So equilibrium concept is a concept that is that you can trace to any aspect of life. Any aspect of what? Life. You can trace equilibrium to the school and the student, whereby you pay tuition fees or school fees and other fees and so on, comply with the rules and regulations and so on, to achieve an overall objective or goal of having a degree in a particular program from the institution. And the institution too is saddled with the responsibility of what? Providing you these services following your commitment, both financial and physical and otherwise. So they will provide you with these services as well. The institution will try as much as possible not to charge you exorbitant fees that you may not be able to acquire. And you on your own side may also try to put in your best so that you do not, lose your own objective. These are two forces, a kind of two forces. Not that they are enemy, but they are just two forces. Now, an equilibrium point to be achieved whereby you are able to get a certain level of considerable level of satisfaction from the institution, and the institution also gets some considerable level of what? Satisfaction. So we operate at equilibrium. But in one instance where student will not play its own part, already there will be a disarray, or the school will not play its own part. After paying tuition fees and everything, there is no lectures and there is no examination and so on. The institution will not be at rest. Or after the institution have, delivered its own part of teaching and everything and so on, the student comes into the examination hall and starts, committing exam malpractice. We are no longer at rest. Equilibrium is traceable to every aspect of life, even in your homes. Family members can be in a state of what? Equilibrium, whereby everyone is playing its responsibility, everyone is doing its own part as it should be. Then that is a state of rest. Having said that, we've taken a lot of time trying to just give a good background to what the equilibrium concept is. Then we look at an equilibrium form known as the static and dynamic equilibrium. Static and dynamic equilibrium. The static equilibrium is that which maintains itself outside the period of time under consideration. It is a state of bliss which every individual, firm, industry, or factors want to attain, and once it is reached, will not want to leave. What do we mean by it maintain itself outside the period of time under consideration? Static equilibrium focuses on timeless determination of economic variables by a mutual interdependent relationship. When we say it maintains itself outside of the time under consideration, we are saying that static equilibrium does not take time into consideration. When you are carrying out static equilibrium analysis, what you are doing is an analysis that does not take time into consideration. In one of those examples, it's the normal demand and supply equilibrium. The normal demand and supply equilibrium is a timeless equilibrium analysis where quantity demanded equal quantity supply at certain price level. Why is it timeless? Because we are not taking past and future into the consideration, into the analysis. We are not taking past or future into the analysis. It is at a point in time like that. So we are not concerned about all the previous maybe last year's price, last 2 years price, last 3 years price, and we are not talking about predictions of the price, the future prices. You understand? We are not talking about the predictions of the future prices. Focus, emphasis is basically on the present, as it is at the time under consideration. Then how is dynamic equilibrium different? In dynamic equilibrium, all the factors that we consider, for instance, the factors that affect demand, all those factors, they change. They are allowed to change in dynamic equilibrium analysis. For instance, when it is the prices of that commodity will continue to change. Quantity demanded will continue to change. Income changes when you are carrying out dynamic equilibrium analysis. In static, they are fixed, but in dynamic equilibrium, they are allowed to be flexible. So, for over a period of time, you have different values of these variables, of which what happens in dynamic equilibrium is a situation where, due to decisions by firms, equilibrium, or by market participants, equilibrium positions can be reached. Equilibrium position, as in it will be changing. You can reach equilibrium position and it will alter again. You enter the equilibrium position. It keeps changing. It's dynamic. It's not fixed, like in the case of static equilibrium. So this is how far we can come today on this one. We'll continue from here in our next class. When we come back, we are going to focus on partial equilibrium analysis and general equilibrium analysis.